Hey everyone, welcome back to the Growth Signal, where we are reimagining the future of customer relationships, how we build them, how we keep them, and how we lead in this ever changing world of customer expectations. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I'm Anika Zubair.
and we are going to have a great conversation. So, Anika, let's dive right in. What is your hot take?
My hot take is that customer success is the number one growth engine in SaaS, not sales.
Oh, we're going to throw down right away against the
Yeah, I'm
sales.
not playing around. I'm here to chat.
Okay, so tell me more about that. Why do you think CS is the ultimate driver of growth, and why are we putting sales on the growth back burner?
The number one reason I say it is because every business has more from customer revenue than they do from new sales. So if you think about it, and as someone who was in sales and is now in customer success, sales people have a target for a month or a quarter. Now, whether that's a few 100,000 or even a few million, if you're at a big organization, salespeople have a quarterly or monthly target. But CS, if you're truly in a post sales revenue leadership or revenue team, you have millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that you look after every year. And that is why I'm saying that CS is the actual growth engine of SaaS rather than sales, because sales is a very short term, this month, this quarter, this year. But CS is looking at all of the revenue within the business for years and years and years to come. So it's a much bigger engine and it's a much bigger revenue lever than what I think we get credit for in customer success. So that is my hot take.
I definitely wanna dive into that. I had someone on the show a couple of months ago who said something to the effect of like, bad salesmanship or slow salesmanship will slow you down. Bad customer experience will break you.
It
And
really
I was
will.
like and like, that makes total sense, right? Because I am a personal believer that customers are less loyal than they ever have been because they can move on to a new
Mhm.
solution. They have a lot of choices. They have the agency, and they're just sick of being burnt by, their customers as customers not really being taken care of, right? A
Yeah,
one-way street of value. S
exactly.
but you made the point of, like, getting credit for it, and that's one of the things I hear from people in CS a lot of time, and full disclosure, I consider myself more on, like, the pre-sale side of things. I tend to work before a customer has signed on the dotted line. Have
Yep,
immense respect for customer success because it seems like a lot of work that you
yep.
guys just don't seem to get credit for. So, how do we start to get credit or give credit where it's due? And what is the first thing you would have a CS leader or a CS practitioner do to make sure that they get the credit for their good work?
Yeah, I think the first tip I can give to anyone who's CS in any role in customer success right now is take ownership that you are a business leader and take ownership that you own a revenue part of that business. I think a lot of people, and this is natural because customer success has stemmed from either support, professional services, something that's more, yeah, satisfy or support the customer rather than more revenue traditional mindset. And because of that, a lot of the leaders of today or a lot of the practitioners of today are so focused in customer satisfaction and customer experience, which is all great things, but we are not here to make customers happy. We are here to make sure they see value and that they see growth while using our product and service. And I think the first tip I can offer is know that you are not just a customer success practitioner, but you are a revenue and growth leader and you pull the levers for revenue growth within your business. And once you start owning that and stepping into that light and that position, you will start seeing that other people around you, whether it's your counterparts in sales or marketing or anyone else, they will start recognizing that, oh, you are a revenue leader. But I think we shy away from it so much. We say we're revenue leaders. We're like, we own NRR or we own GRR or we own whatever metric it is. But you need to really step in and own. We look after 25 million in reoccurring revenue every single year, and we increase that revenue by 15% every year because of our upsells or our retention strategies or whatever it is. But I don't see enough people speaking in that language. The reason why sales gets the credit it does is they speak the revenue language. They always say, well, sales exceeded targets by 200%, and we hit over 50% of our sales goal before half year finished or whatever they're saying to say about their targets, but they are always tying their outcomes to business revenue. And I think in CS, we do not tie the outcomes of the conversations we have, the business reviews we have, the renewal conversations we have to revenue. And I think that that's where we fall on our own sword. And because we don't do that, we end up being seen as that support or cost center rather than revenue generating center that is the true revenue growth engine of SaaS businesses.
I think sales also has the advantage of, like, there's no ambiguity of whether or not they're contributing, right? They're
Yeah,
either winning or
yeah,
they're losing, and there's
yeah.
no in between.
I'm a little bit jealous of sales leaders in that way. It's so easy to say, I closed a deal or I lost a deal. It's very black and white. And with
Right.
customer success, there's lots of shades of gray,
Well
unfortunately.
well,
And
and it's hard too because I think a lot of CS leaders and CSMs I'm seeing, they conflate happy with value and
Mhm.
good relationships with renewals,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they get themselves into the situation where they want to own the fact that they have a squishy feely qualitative relationship with their customer, but when that quantitative outcome doesn't bear out and they don't actually have the revenue to go along with it, either 1, sales gets the credit,
Yes.
or 2, um, it just kind of goes unnoticed. So
Yeah.
you mentioned to start connecting like, "Hey, I own this amount of revenue for the company and I grew it in this way." Are there any metrics that you think sales leader or CS leaders, excuse me, need to start incorporating into their vocabulary?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing your metrics in general. I think a lot of times we don't speak in metrics and revenue. And I would say I personally saw the most career growth when I started to speak to NRR and GRR regularly, meaning how many customers are churning and how many customers are growing, either quarter, year, whatever your targets are in metric. It's really starting to own it, know it, and communicate it regularly. When I started communicating it regularly at our executive leadership team meetings, it became clear what we owned and what we were doing because I see this time and time again, and I've been guilty of it early in my career as well, is where I was like, oh, well, we onboarded 15 new customers, or, we just renewed one of our biggest logos. But the thing is, even though it's your biggest logo, I can guarantee that your exec team has no idea the revenue impact that biggest logo has. Maybe the CFO knows. That's probably the person that does know, but most people have no idea. But again, I like to mimic or look at what my sales leaders are saying and they said, "We just closed a brand new logo for 500,000." Like they will always say a revenue number tied to the efforts and the outcomes that they're driving. And I would say that's the big missing piece. We don't speak to our metrics or our revenue often enough. And the thing is, you think that your other co-parts, like your counterparts in sales or marketing or product understand what customer revenue is. They don't. They're worried about product delivery. They're worried about marketing leads. They are doing their own world and own things. You have to bring to the table the revenue metric that matters. And I can't say that because every business is different, but whatever it is for your business, know the metric, own the metric, and speak to it as often as you can with your leadership and counterparts.
And to me, like, again, coming from the pre-sale side, everything you're saying seems, like, totally obvious. Of course, you connect it to their revenue metrics. So, if you and I agree that this is the way to do it, why is there still, like, people who are saying, "Well, I onboarded 15 people this week." Like, why haven't they caught on to this?
I think it's because of the way we customer success was targeted or the inception of it was activity. I think the way we were trained, and I say this when I was a CSM 13 years ago, 12 years ago now, I was told do X number of calls with the customer, like meet with your customers every 2 weeks and do a QBR once a quarter. Everything that a CSM has had to do and everything that customer success has been tied to has been a number in activity sense or more how much work you can do and not necessarily the revenue impact of that work. And so because we've always been tied to activity based things, that is what we tie it to rather than, hey, because I onboarded 15 customers, we now have, 20,000 more in ARR per year because we successfully finished onboarding. It's just, I think, a lot to do with how customer success came around and what we were measured on when it came to the work we were doing. And I think because of the economy right now, because of what we're seeing on the global scale across SaaS, activity doesn't matter. It's not growth at all costs. It's not, let's just hire more people to keep handling more customers. Because honestly, my first role in leadership, that is what I was told. I was like, okay, we have more customers, which means we need more CSMs. That's not the case anymore. We cannot just keep throwing money at the problem. We cannot keep just hiring more and more CSMs to fill the void. It is now about what revenue impact do you have? It's not about activity impact. And I think that that's the problem, or not necessarily the problem. I think it's a transition that we're going through in customer success right now, which is, hey, we used to be activity based, but now we need to be revenue outcome based. And that is why I still see people work in the way that you've just outlined.
Yeah, and some of it might too also be personality, the type of person who was attracted to a customer success role
Yeah.
when they were, more support based, when it was more consultative, more change management focused. Because I work with researchers, so I've spent the last 10 years selling like user experience research for enterprise companies. And so my team are very analytical doers. They like to deliver on things. And one of the things we had to really work on was the how is important and even the why is important, but the most important thing that our clients actually care about is the so what, right?
Mhm.
And you have to get to that so what as quickly as possible. And actually we like to even start with the so what, to your point, like this is the what, this is the
Yeah.
so what. And then if someone really cares, we can dig into the how and the why.
Yep.
But the research team always loves to snap back to the how and the why because that's where they find excitement and value and enjoyment because
Mhm.
that's their work and they're close to it and they find it valuable. What they have to relearn sometimes is that the executive sitting on the other side of the table does not care about the methodology we used for the research or how many participants came through or what the conversation points were. They care what it means and the impact on their business. And it's a hard mindset shift for
It
some of these
is.
people.
It is, and I think it comes back to, and I know a lot of people find this icky, and I do coach on this and I train on this, but companies just care about 2 things. It's making money or becoming more operationally efficient to make more money. Like,
Yeah.
we live in a capitalist society. If you work right now and you're listening to this podcast and you are getting paid for that work, you live in a capitalist society, and we're not working for free. So all your customers are doing the same thing. They're not working for free. They're not building businesses for free. Now, if you work in charities or something else, this is not the podcast for you. But if you're working in a traditional SaaS business, they are trying to make money in some shape or form,
Yeah.
either to pay back investors, to become profitable. And that is exactly what your customers are trying to do day in and day out. And sometimes that mindset takes quite a while for people to get to grips with, understand. But we are all here to make or grow money, whether it's your own paycheck or your customer's business. It is to grow and make money. So
Yeah.
why are we speaking in happiness terms or experience terms? It's cold hard cash that's running the way that we run business. So that is what's important to your customer.
Yeah, I always tell people you are either revenue generating or revenue responding. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what your role is, but the first part of your job description includes the word revenue.
Yeah.
And like whether you're the CFO, you're revenue responding. If you're HR, you're revenue responding because you have a job because
Yep.
we had revenue.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and it's a big part of why we're all in business at the end of the day. Yes, we wanna help people. Yes, we wanna see them successful. Yes, we wanna see all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, you're not working for free. Your
Right.
company is not a charity that's just paying you for free. We are here to see revenue growth in some way, shape, or form. But I think the misconception, and a lot of this again has to do with the type of people that have been in customer success, is that we've been into this almost support or cost center mindset that has been honestly pretty detrimental. And the reason why I keep seeing it, but layoffs keep happening in customer success. Customer success leaders are like, "Oh, I don't know why my role has been impacted," but it's like you just said, you're either revenue generating or revenue supporting. If you're not doing either, then your role is gonna have an impact.
Yeah. And if you can't connect and get credit for your role in revenue responding, right?
Yeah,
Because a lot of
exactly.
times but the other flip side that I hear from CSMs is that they like to get the credit for the revenue, they don't like the flip side, which is the accountability. So in
Mhm.
sales, if I miss my number, I get held accountable,
Yeah.
right? And do we think that CSMs and the CS, concept as a whole is ready to be rewarded for the wins and held accountable for the losses.
I mean, here's the thing. I know that sales and most AEs have a much different split if we're talking about ownership of numbers. So when I was in sales, I had a 50-50 split. 50% of my salary came from a base and 50 came from hitting my number.
Yep.
Now, CSMs mostly, at least on my teams, always have an 80-20 split. And the thing is, they are held responsible and their 20% of their salary is due to some sort of KPI. I think, like you said, it's going to be a tough transition, but most of my teams have had revenue targets to earn 100% of their paycheck. And I think it's just owning that you need to work for that 100%. Now, I have had CS teams that have exceeded that 100%, which is really great as well for them. But the thing is, we all just don't get a base salary. That's the thing. In all my CS roles, it's never been like that, and I don't think it's changing, but I do think the ownership needs to be on that 20% split has to be revenue generating activities. 80% is maybe onboarding, continuing to show value, planting the seed early for upsells and renewals or building advocates. That can be 80% of your job, but to really be those top performers, you need to generate revenue or growth from your customer base. And I do see most CSMs have that split, but I do think it's still going to take some time for most CSMs to be okay or comfortable with owning the loss because they're almost expecting that 100%. And I'm like, you're not always going to get it if you're not growing your customer base. And I think that that's the place where it might take a little bit more time before we're truly seeing that ownership of loss and wins because CS tends to take the win.
Right, and hell yeah, I mean, if you can get away with it, I'd take the win over the
Yeah, of course.
accountability. Anybody would. So one of the things that we like to talk about on this podcast is leadership in the life cycle of the customer. So whether you're on the sales side, whether you're leading a team of CSMs, in your experience, if a CS leader wanted to start taking the steps towards really helping their CS team be a growth driver and not a cost center, what is
Mhm.
the first step you would have them take?
Yeah, enable, show your team, literally show them. I think the thing is that most CSMs don't understand NRR, GRR, what they have to do to hit that number. And my biggest tip is if you're taking over a team that hasn't been commercially savvy or owned any sort of metric in that way, break it down for them. I remember my first role where I had to really own NRR. I took the NRR number and I broke it down quarterly, monthly, and then down to account level for my CSMs. I was like, okay, for us to hit 120 plus NRR per quarter, we need to hit this much in upsell. Every month, you need to be closing or at least have 3 to 4 opportunities for upsells. And that made it tangible, easier, and again, more like digestible for a CSM because unlike sales, CS thinks in a yearly, they think way bigger. They think like, I have the whole year or I have to work with these clients for 12 months. But with upsells and with owning an active forecast into NRR, you have to kind of think of like a sales leader. And again, I come from a sales background. So the way I've even the way my brain works is break it down into quarterly and monthly and what
Right.
you've got to do to execute on that. But when I did this for my CSMs, it took the fear away. It made them realize, okay, this is how I have to look at my book of business. I have to speak to at least of my 15 customers, 3 of them have to be in upsell conversation this quarter. So that means I have to really start thinking of which customers I need to prioritize and actually speak to about an upsell. Because what happens is CSMs are doing everything. They're literally doing everything under the sun from jumping on a support ticket to getting on a pre-sales call to dealing with a product roadmap issue that they don't see it. They don't understand what growth actually means. So as a leader, my biggest tip is break it down, show them and enable them on how they can get to that upsell or renewal number that you have in front of them.
One of the people that I used to work with described sales as basically a roller coaster of hero to zero. Every 90 days, you go from saving the company to being absolutely terrible, and it's always kind of that up and down, never
Yep.
that consistent steady. So I love the idea of like, it's great to think long term. It's great to have a long term view of your customer, but how can you roll it back so it doesn't feel like, to use a lack of a better phrase, like boiling the ocean every time you're trying to deal with
Yeah.
your customers. And
Yeah.
also you're not surprised when the
Exactly.
time comes, because nobody
Yeah.
likes surprises. Surprise parties, surprise whatever, nobody likes them at all
Nobody
times.
likes it, and it's overwhelming. I think of it all the time. I was like, I remember the first time I was a CSM, I'm like, "Oh my god, our NRR is 102%, and I need to get it to 115. That's a lot." I was like,
Right.
"That's so much. How am I gonna do that? What am I gonna do?" And when you reverse engineer it and break it down, it helps your brain so much, by the way. It really helps you if even if you're doing any sort of project and you reverse engineer and break down into monthly, weekly, whatever that you have to do, it helps you. But I think whenever my CSMs missed a target as well, by the way, I reminded them that, "Okay, you missed it this quarter, but the beauty of customer success is we have the whole year to make
Right.
up for it." It's not the 0 to hero that you just mentioned, which I was just giggling at, but the beauty is that if you do miss a target in CS, it's a little bit more forgiving, and
Yeah.
you have a little bit more time to adjust. So, don't be fearful of the number if you are in CS and listening, but also know what levers you have to pull either on a monthly, quarterly, half yearly basis, whatever it is, because it won't overwhelm you then.
I wanna get your reaction to this because I hosted a roundtable, god, it was, like, over a month now, maybe even longer, and the idea was that, the question was, "Should CS own revenue?" And I had a group of panelists come on, and we talked about it, and, as it was a live conversation, so we had people, like, commenting, in the comments, and one of the comments that came through was from a CSM whose company was moving her role to be more commercial, so she
Mm.
had to, like, have a quota and own some revenue,
Yeah.
and she said, "This is not what I was hired for." That I mean,
Okay. I mean, here's the thing. If I had I wouldn't have a job if I just said that to every role that I've ever been in, including sales, including CS. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm just trying to think of every role I've ever had. It's I've never done what was in the job description. I think my job description changes quarterly or yearly at least. And
yeah,
I get it. You are nervous and you don't think you have the skills or the previous experience to be successful in the role. But rather than saying this is not what I was hired for, a big part of me, and maybe this is again just me being the kind of curious, open driven mindset that I have, is like, cool. How are you going to help me be successful in being the commercial CSM? I think people take it on themselves, like, I have to do this alone. And this is another complex that CSMs have. It's the hero complex, I call it. I have to do everything. I have to save the customer. I have to get on the call. I have to do this. I have to do that. But it's not you. It is a company initiative to move to a commercial customer success management team or quota or whatever it is. And my first question would be like, okay, so how are you going to help me grow into this role? Or what are we doing to enable the entire company to understand the commercial side of customer success? Or I would also say, hey, if that's what we're doing in customer success now, are we hiring more support staff to, deal with tickets, deal with the fires, deal with the onboarding calls that I have to go through? I do think that if you're saying that, you're probably someone who's been given too much and not pushed back enough, which again, I think is a common trait in customer success.
yeah, the panelist on the roundtable, when I read that quote to him, he was like, "Well, there's really only one answer here, and it's to polish your resume." I was like, "Oh, damn."
Oh my god, but it's so true. Like, I'm sorry, like, every job I've ever had, by the time I've left it, if I wish I did this, maybe there's something I'll start doing, but I wish I saved the original job description, because I can guarantee you what was on the original job description and what's on my resume today does not align, because
No.
I probably was doing a totally different job, because once you step into a company and once you step into a role, everything changes. And also, it changes all the time. Change is the only constant, right? So every quarter, every month, every single time the economy changes, every time your customers change, every time you have different KPIs or goals, your role is going to change. If you want a static role, then you need to go work in, like, I don't know, education or government or
I
I don't know,
mean, I
and
don't think
something
there
that
is a single role that is static,
I know
especially
even
not
today,
in
I'm just thinking government roles are not static.
No, no, I mean, they used to be, but I just feel like with the way our world is evolving, and I know it sounds super cliche, but, like, we are changing faster every day than the entire lifetime of our ancestors,
Yeah.
so, like, adaptability I always used to tell people adaptability is, like, one of my best traits, one of my best things about me, what makes me the most employable, and now I just feel like adaptability is table stakes, and if you don't have that skill set, you are just not gonna make it.
No, and I used to say that that used to be a common skill in startups and scale-ups, but like you've
Yeah.
just pointed out, it doesn't matter anymore. The world we live in changes so fast from even from the morning till when I go to
I
bed,
know.
like what I see on the internet in the morning versus what I see at night. I'm like, well, that's new. That wasn't what we were expecting to happen today. And there's just no way that if you say something like, that's not what I was hired for, then I'm sorry, then what kinda job are you gonna actually be successful at in 2025? I'd love to know.
Right? Nothing. There's literally I can't think of a single thing that allows for that.
Yeah.
Anika, if someone is, really interested in kind of growing their skill set, they wanna follow another thought leader or really trying to dig deep, who else would you recommend we talk to?
Oh my gosh, I could have a never-ending list to this because as a fellow podcaster, I love calling out the podcast that I love listening to, but, for anyone that's looking for career advice or getting any sort of, like, resume career tips, Carly Agar is brilliant. She helps career transitioners or customer success people land their next customer success role. She's brilliant. And then another friend, but also inspiration to me is Christy Belteruso. She has so many podcasts, but the one I love is She's So Sweet because it's all about women in the C-suite, which is really inspirational. And I absolutely love all the women she speaks to on that show. And then finally, my friend Rachel Provan, she uses psychology to really uncover why we do what we do in customer success. And I absolutely love listening to her podcast in that way. But those are three business podcasts. One other person that is absolutely inspirational and absolutely love her to pieces is Mel Robbins. I think she is just I don't even know what to put into words. She is your best friend that you didn't know you had. She is your life coach. She is everything and anything when it comes to really guiding and helping you decide what's next in your career and your life, and she's just amazing. So if you could get Mel Robbins on your show, I would love to just sit on the background of that recording.
I'm gonna put that out into the universe. We're gonna get Mel Robbins on the show
That's
someday.
amazing.
And Anika, if someone is really connecting with you, if they wanna learn more, they wanna have a conversation with you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can find me under Anika Zubair on LinkedIn. I am very active on there, but also if you wanna go to my website, thecustomersuccesspro.com, that's my company, that's where we produce all the content around customer success being a revenue driver. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all the social handles is the Customer Success Pro, so feel free to connect there, and of course, the podcast as well, so you can find me there.
Thanks so much for coming on the Growth Signal. This was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. I loved it.